Welcome to our online session, World Spa Ki Baat. This is your host, Archana Malhotra. Last time we had a very interesting session with Mihir about face shields for protection from the COVID-19 virus. Today we have an expert, a leader from the Indian Air Force who has helped protect not just us, but our entire country. He has lots to share with us. I request you again to mute yourselves and type your questions. We'll pause for the question answer breaks and I'll keep opening up this discussion as we sail along. We welcome our extremely accomplished guest, Air Marshal Gautam Nayyar. Air Marshal Nayyar began his career as an engineering officer in a fighter squadron. He's been instrumental in smooth induction of Mirage 2000 fleet in the Indian Air Force, which is widely acknowledged as the best weapon system induction. He was responsible for the formulation of the Aircraft Maintenance Manual, the AMM, which was considered to be the Bible for maintenance engineers. In recognition of his exceptional service, he was awarded the Presidential Vishisht Seva Medal on January 26, 1993 and the Param Vishisht Seva Medal on January 26, 2009. As Air Marshal, he was appointed to improve the weapon system of the Indian Air Force. Under his umbrella, Embraer and Hawks were introduced and upgrade measures taken for Su-30 fleet. At the pinnacle of his career, he was appointed as Air Officer Commanding-in-Chief, which is a secretary-level post exercising control over the entire maintenance and logistics management of the Air Force. A squash player, a keen golfer, and always a sportsman, he has represented the armed forces for the Ranji Trophy Cricket Championship. We welcome you here, sir.
Thanks, Archana. Thanks, Rakesh, for having me over here. And thank you so very much. This lockdown has taught us many things. And to start with, my wife made it a point that she gave me a haircut this morning. And this is the first thing. There's so many new things we do every day. But that's it. So I won't turn my back because she started from the rear side, which isn't too even, But front side seems to be okay. Okay.
And we are going to come back to that also. But let's start our question answer session first. What is India's threat from the world at large, sir?
Okay. To start with, I'll tell you, I retired in 2009. Okay, and that's good about 10 years back. And that's the time we came into the World Spa. And at that particular time, 2009, I remember Vipin and Kuku Kapoor welcoming us. That's the time when the migration from Laburnum took place to World Spa. And after that, we've been here and we're very happy over here. Initially, I was with the BOM for about 5 years or so, did my bit in that. But wonderful, we had a lovely time and really enjoyed the life in the World Spa and hope to carry on this way. Now, being an engineer, my talk is going to be focused a bit or slightly on the engineering side point of view because I'm not an operational guy. And the acquisition part is also not an engineering responsibility. And I retired 10 years back. So considering all these aspects, I give it a concession to me that I won't be that accurate. And so whatever knowledge I had, I will share the knowledge with you all for whatever I know about it. Now, initially, when we talk about the Air Force, first comes a threat perception, what the Air Force is for. Now, the Air Force has a capability or we have an entitlement that we call it the UE to have 42 squadrons. So each squadron we have, I'm talking about the fighter aircrafts only, we have 16 aircraft and 2 trainers. Considering we have 3 or 4 reserve aircraft each squadron, so with 42 aircrafts UE, we are entitled to around 900 aircraft. That is the total strength which at the peak Air Force can ever have. Today, because of the life expiries of certain aircrafts, we are down to about 800 aircrafts. In comparison, if we compare, the Pakistan Air Force has half our strength, 400, to give a certain idea. And the China Air Force has double our strength. Chinese aircraft, in fact, as of today, will have 1,800 aircrafts. We have about 800. The largest is, of course, the Americans. They have 3,000 fighter aircraft, and next the Russians have 2,000. Having said that, see the numbers which are there. see what is the force levels around us in the neighborhood. If the time comes, we have to use the acquisition process, which definitely is not my domain. Just to tell you, because I'm going to talk about a bit of acquisitions later on in the talk. When we have, the Air Force has a shortage, we project a requirement to the ministry, and ministry, the highest level body, is the Defense Acquisition Council, which is headed by the RM. Once they approve a long-term plan, then comment, okay, the necessity is accepted. That is the acceptance of necessity. Thereafter, they give us permission to float RFPs globally. And thereafter, L1 is decided for meeting your special SQRs, the quality requirements you want on an aircraft, and which is the cheapest, which meets the requirement, we have to go ahead with that L1 first. Having said that, now the life cycle of an aircraft that we need to know is about 30 years of useful life, or 8,000 hours. That's basically meant for the airframe life, because that is used. Because avionics, you can anytime upgrade and make it, refurbish it to new equipment. Post independence, we talk about the 50s onwards. As you're fully aware, we were mostly inclined to the Russians. It goes without saying, our total fleets, talk about the helicopter fleet, we have the Mi-4s, Mi-8, Mi-17, Mi-25-35s, Mi-26. That's the helicopter fleet, mostly the Russian versions. The transport, earlier we had the AN-12s, then the AN-32s, then IL-76s. The fighter class also, the MiG-21s, MiG-23s, MiG-25s, MiG-27s, MiG-29s, Su-30s came in later. Again, totally Russian. Israelis have given us the UAVs. Our total UAV strength in the Air Force is Israeli dominated. Now, having said that, selection of an aircraft, when SQR is released, during the SQR you have to say what type of aircraft you want. You want a fly-by-wire system, you want a particular radar, you want that much range, what tonnage capacity, the radius of turn, altitude, all this paraphernalia you give it in the SQR stage. Then you lose control. Then whoever meets this SQR and has the lowest price, the government says, fine, this is the lowest price, this is the aircraft. So with paraphernalia or this modus operandi, what happens? The Russians are always cheaper than any of the Western class of aircraft. The government says, fine, this is what you wanted, they are the least costly, you go and use it. So by that principle or that philosophy, we are totally, we were already overflooded with the Russian equipment. Now, having said that, the Russian equipment is a nightmare for engineers like me. At any given time, they have the cost, but half the fleet you will find sitting in the hangars because of various reasons. So if you have the fleet is sitting in the hangar, you don't have the numbers, you don't have the aircraft available to you, then it becomes a problem area. It's total farce as such. To name a few, the technological problem, in a MiG-21 class of aircraft, in case you have a bird hit, okay, you lose, you have to do engine change. It takes me 5 days to change the engine. So 5 days, the aircraft is down. If there's a leakage, the fuel pump leaks, the oil pump, there's a leakage, I have to change the pump. Now this philosophy, the Russian philosophy says, you have to strip open the aircraft to assess this fuel pump. That takes another 6-7 days gone to remove and put the aircraft line. As compared, I just compared to the Mirages because the Mirages, in comparison, for engine takes 2 hours. And in a Mirage, the maintenance philosophy is such that all LRUs, all equipment are accessible with a panel. You don't have to do anything. You just open a panel, the item comes out, you fit it back. In a couple of hours, the aircraft is back on the tarmac. So the availability by far, even if it's costly, but availability of these aircraft is ensured. Another thing, who have dealt with the Russian systems, even if the government approves, government says fine, you give them spares, you give them the equipment, but there are various stages. They have the quality insurance guys, they have the custom guys, they have the vendors. They don't stick to the costing. We always have a problem with that. We always get in trouble. You'll be finding the custom guys may sit on the equipment for 6 months together till the time it gets okay. Because everyone, it's a mafia, everybody has to have his share till the time the equipment goes off, which really hampers the availability of aircraft as far as we are concerned. I remember once while I was the AOM, we had a lot of trouble with the Mi-17 helicopter fleet because we didn't have the spares. And at that time, we said we had, fortunately, we had a meeting with the RM at that stage, at particular time. And the RM that time, we used to call him Father Anthony because he's a very man of few words. I told him, sir, look, this is what problems we are facing. We are going to induct new aircraft. Please hold this project for the time being till the time they supply the spares. He just smiled at me and thereafter it just let go. But the aircrafts do come. It's a political decision at times. These things do happen. And mind you, giving another example to you, and during the winters, the only lifeline is IL-76, which transfers all the spares, equipment, logistic support to the army during the winters. IL-76 fleet, what we had about 14, 15 aircrafts. At any given time, what we had, maybe 3 or 4 aircrafts online. The rest, everything is either life expired or doing some checks. And can you imagine, every day morning, the first thing in the morning, I get a call from the chief. I was the AO at that time. Every Gautam, aaj kitne hain? So I have to tell him, aaj 2 aircraft hain, ya 1 aircraft hai, aaj koi aircraft nahi hai. Whether we will go through these sorties or we won't go through these sorties was also a question mark. Now, this aircraft serviceability monitoring is normally left at the unit level, flight level to monitor. But in this case, where so many problems do occur, that a chief has to monitor how many aircraft we have to support the army on a particular day. So this thing carried on for another 40 years or so, I'll say, till 2000 or so, till the time the Mirages came into the picture. Now, in the year 84 to 85, we had a very good time. We had good availability, the Western Fleet, Mirages, easy to fly. They were the easiest aircraft to fly with and easiest aircraft to maintain. Incidentally, our speaker, Shaili Chopra, was there. His father was commanding a 1 squadron while I was posted. I was the engineering officer, father was there. She was there. Incidentally, we happened to be there at the particular time when this happened in Gwalior. Now, in 2000, when we foresee we want a new aircraft, we can't go for Mirages because we have to look ahead. So that's the time the concept of MMRCA came in, the 126, the aircraft which talks about mother of all deals. Now, MMRCA is a medium-range, multi-role compact aircraft. They were earlier MiG-35s, Griffins, F-16s, all these aircrafts in the competition. Ultimately, we boiled down to Rafales and the Eurofighter. Finally, it was in 2010-11 or so, it was the Rafale which was selected. And the other thing for this deal, in 2008, it had cost us $7.8 billion US. But by the time it came to the stage where we had to acquire, where the negotiations were going on, it was 2014. The cost at that time rose up to $30 billion. Now, mind you, with $30 billion, 126 are coming in, and fortunately we have a clause, the offset clause. That means any manufacturer who wins a contract has to put in half the money back into the Indian currency, back into the Indian industry. That is a requirement, mandatory requirement by the law. For this, then the other players do come in. The Reliance were interested at a particular time, they came into the picture. But the PNC failed for one simple reason, because Dassault refused to, there were 18 aircraft which have to be flown directly from France and 108 aircraft which had to be manufactured by HAL. What the Air Force wanted, you gave us warranty for all the 126 aircraft, including the aircraft which are produced by HAL. Now, Dassault refused. They point blank said, we are not working on it. HAL is manufacturing it. We don't have the trust in HAL. Why should we give guarantee? So it didn't work out. It dropped out. And as for the Reliance, also lost interest because they had a presentation, I'm told, which is hearsay. They say, what is there for us? In case we invest so much of money, what is there for us? Now, mind you, 126 aircraft, not big number. Any powerhouse going to invest money, he will see his economic viability. So this didn't go through. Now, see, the aircrafts, MiG-21s are failing, MiG-21s are grounding. We don't have aircrafts. So 2014, 2015 came a stage where our total strength of the fighters depleted. So we had no choice but to go in for the government-to-government contract of Rafales of 36 aircraft with France, Dassault, which fortunately has gone through. The aircraft are yet to come in, but there again, because the total contract, what is there in the public domain is $7.8 billion. That means $3 billion have to be plowed back into the Indian industry. That's why these private players like Reliance or Mahindra, they come into the picture. They want to take in the business for that. But there's been too much of controversies on that, which I am not a party to it. I don't know about it, but it's in the public domain. But the aircrafts are yet to come. We will see when it comes.
So may I interrupt for a second to just sum up? So we started with the MiG fighter planes from Russia. We did not give up on the MiGs, but we gave up on the Russians, and slowly MiGs are now giving up on us. And then we moved to Mirages from France and the Hawks from UK, right? So that was the slow shift towards the Western world.
Yeah.
And then we ordered the MMRCA aircrafts from France again, which was cancelled. And that was what you said was the mother of all deals for defense.
MMRCA is not exactly a particular aircraft. MMRCA is medium-range, multi-role combat
aircraft.
There's a number of aircraft qualify in that range.
Okay.
It so happened the Dassault aircraft Rafale qualified for that. So we were negotiating with them.
And so some of them were cancelled and the Rafale is yet to come in.
No. So 126 deal was called off. 36 aircraft Rafale deal had to go through because we didn't have any aircrafts to safeguard our total strength. We had to stick to something. So at the top level, at the top the Prime Minister's level, this deal was okayed and 36 aircraft has been contracted, which are going to come.
So that is now due in May 2020.
No, that will come in the period of 2020, 2022. They're going to come. That over the period of time.
Well, there was a problem in the deal and everything was sorted out, or it is to be sorted out?
No, as for that, see, that's again in the public domain. I'm not involved in the negotiation, but the contract stands approved and cleared. Aircrafts are to come.
What is the government's Make in India component, sir?
Okay. Coming to that, can we come to that a bit later?
Sure.
Okay. So what we have, see, having said all this, then the American section. So the geopolitical scenario did change. Then the Americans came into the picture. Earlier, we didn't go to the Americans because Americans are the ones who refused to transfer technology. There was total blank on that stage. They said, we will not give you the niche technology. But later on, the economics took over. It's money which matters, means everything. They are willing to give you everything. They are willing to give you technology, to give you everything. So there a tilt happened in 2012 or so towards the Americans. So as you see, we have considered C-130, the Hercules, the Globemaster, C-17s, Apache, and Chinook aircraft. Now, can I request Rakesh, could you just play the video just to have an insight how these aircrafts look like and what do we see?
Yeah, sure. Just give me a second. I hope you can see my screen as well.
Yes.
Yes, yes, we can see it.
Okay. Now, these are the Apaches. These are the Boeing attack helicopters. They have replaced the Russian Mi-25-35 fleet. It's a tandem cockpit A pilot sits in front at the rear. They have a very good capability, night vision capability. The speed is 365 kilometers an hour. The cost, the whole deal came with Chinooks, 15 Chinooks and 22 Apache helicopters at a total price of $3 billion. That was quite a major deal. They have 30 millimeter guns. They are proven aircraft. Their 2 squadrons are going to be erected. They're going to be very effective against the Naxals and the terrorist attack, if so happens, and with the ammunition of 30 millimeter and the rockets. We have acquired 15 of these helicopters, the heavy lift helicopters. They are going to replace the MiG-26. They're very useful. I remember while in Chandigarh when we were using it, one of our MiG-21s had crashed. That time we used MiG-26. We underslung it and just lift it up. They can lift the tanks. Very versatile, very good aircraft, excellent aircraft. MiG-26, we had major problems with the spares and the serviceabilities. Chinook has been very, very sturdy, reliable aircraft as of now. It can be used for humanitarian disaster relief, search, rescue operations. They can carry vehicles, tanks, aircraft underslung, and we get it back to the base. Next is the C-17s, the Globemaster, which is a replacement for the IL-76, which I said, we carry the loads and for the army backup in the winter seasons for the army. Now, the Globemaster C-17s, it has a range of 10,000 kilometers. Now, they have a simulator, which our friend Basarao, who stays in the B block, his company has made the simulator for the Boeings. It's again not the largest plane in the world. Largest plane again is a Russian AN-225, but this is an excellent aircraft. It can land on short runways, underprepared runways. It has the 80% serviceability. And the best part is the Americans, the deal, what we have gone through it, in case your availability reduces to less than 80%, they are liable to pay you back. That means as liquidity damages, they are going to compensate you in terms of spares and give you money back. They warranty that your availability is going to be 80%. The aircrafts are going to be available to you, as in comparison to the Russian fleet, which just gives you about 40 to 50% serviceability. And finally, we have the Russian, which is new induction, is C-130s, the turboprop aircraft, the Hercules. This is not by Boeing, it is by Lockheed Martin. It's really a workhorse. For every small thing you call upon this aircraft, wherever disaster management, anything has got to be done, this is the aircraft is called for support. Range is 3,800 kilometers. Each aircraft costs $67 million US. One aircraft out of this 12 aircraft has crashed. I'll tell you the story of its crash a bit later. Reliability, cargo, vehicles, personal, aeromedical, evacuation. In case of any terrorist attack, the commandos are to be lifted at short notice. This is the aircraft will be called for. They had their own simulator in Hindon. Widely used by the Air Force for any emergency rescue operations. In short, this American inclination has been good for the Air Force. The availability, the numbers are available. What we thought we are going to have 900 aircraft, we'll get to have over 800 aircraft. We'll have the numbers. So the easy to operate, easy to maintain, reliability, it gives you answer for everything. But again, there will be an issue that the requirement of spares. As of now, they have assured but let's see how the diplomacy works, the political situation works. Talking about C-130s, the aircraft which we lost, it so happened in Hindon, it came in the wake of the front aircraft. If you tell me, if you have an aircraft like this, you're flying like this, the exhaust of this aircraft comes in its way and this aircraft drops like a log. I can tell you by experience, fortunately, unfortunately, there was an incident when me and my wife were operating, we went in an Avro aircraft and we were trying to land in Palam, but we had to circle around. What happened? Our pilot somehow got into the wake exhaust of a Boeing. And mind you, that day, I don't know how we survived. Our aircraft fell like a log. We lost 10,000 feet right from top to bottom like a rock. And that's the time we just swear on God that this is the end of it. Next day, when I called up the pilot, he says, "Sir, thoda problem ho gaya. Boeing hamare samne aa gaya." I go, "What the hell? Whether you get into buying that aircraft?" And it was a miracle. So I can imagine how we lost this aircraft. You come into the wake of the other aircraft, you just drop like a log. Okay, having said that, we've gone through the Russians, we've gone through the French, we've gone through the Americans. I'll take on the questions by
can we? I have lots of questions here, very curious friends. So Mr. Badri Krishnan has a few questions. His first question is, what are your thoughts on Elon Musk's comment, the fighter jet is dead, the future is drone fighter? When do you see this happening, and how would the skies look in a future battlefield?
Oh, we haven't come into this. The drone fighter is one thing. Yes, we are there. The Americans also giving it trials. The pilotless aircraft fighter. There are trials going on to this. The drones have been very successful partially, but I don't think there's been a big debate on it. I'm not a pilot, but I can say that can the drone replace the pilot, man on the machine? What the pilots feel, so no. The answer is no. For small equipment, for small jobs, yes. For terrorist attacks, small equipment, for specific things, yes, drones can be used. But replacing a man behind a pilot machine, I don't think the pilots feel is not possible in the near future.
Okay. Wouldn't an aircraft like A-10 Warthog be ideal for close air support for India? Considering that A-10 might be mothballed in the US, would it make sense to make a pitch for them?
The US aircrafts. The point is, see, Archana, we can't put all your eggs in one basket. You never know if Mr. Trump decides one particular day, if you don't buy my Harley Davidsons, I'm not going to surprise you. Okay, so you just can't put, so we have to have a variety. We have, actually, you see the Chinese are the best. They have 1,800, 1,900 aircrafts, but all the aircrafts are Chinese make. J10, J20, J10, J7s, they're all equipment. They're not depending on anybody. So point is, when our LCA does come into the picture, if it comes through, yes, we can have an answer. But actually, you can't depend on anybody. The geopolitical situation can change anytime for any consideration.
Archana, can I come in?
Yes.
Yeah, sure, Vishnuji.
Couple of questions, Air Marshal. One, I've always wondered that we have now an assortment of aircrafts. You know, we have, as you mentioned, the MiGs, the JAGs, the Antonovs, we are getting now Rafales, Mirages. Now, isn't this a logistical nightmare? Because for each series of aircrafts, you need the entire team, specialized team to maintain them, service them, the parts. How does our experience compare with the other air forces, major air forces? Do they also, and China you mentioned, but are there other countries who have major air forces which also have an assortment of aircraft? So that is one. Secondly, you mentioned St. Anthony, and the question that I had was that typically, how long does it take from start to finish to complete the process of induction of a new aircraft? How does our experience compare with the global experience?
Fine. Right, sir. That's right. See, the countries like us, I'll say, you can call us a poor country. Okay, we are not the mighty. We have no choice. Like Pakistan, for us, for small countries, we have to buy equipment. We can't develop the equipment. Now, coming to the second question, that how long it takes. Look at the MMRCA deal. It was conceived in the year 2001.
No, sorry. Sorry, my question was whether it is a logistical nightmare.
It is. Being an engineer, I am directly involved. The nightmare we had faced. By any chance, we to have different fleets, different sort of people, different training, different spare parts, different procedures. But do we have a choice? Now, our transition is taking place from the Russians to the Western fleet, where we have got wise. Earlier, we said, okay, you give us the equipment, give us the inventory, assure us the spares. Now we say the concept is you ensure availability of 80% at your cost. This is the new item or the new ideology which has gone in for procurement. It is your responsibility. We're going to pay you this much. You ensure 80% serviceability. If not, you will give us money back.
It has not impaired our operational capabilities to have 4 or 5 types of major aircrafts. Operationally, it has not been a hindrance.
It is a hindrance it's a problem we faced all through. Let's see in case we can come over. But unfortunately, our indigenous production doesn't keep pace. You talk about Tejas, you talk about the LCA. I'll just brief on the LCA. LCA was conceived in the year 1985. We gave the parameters SQR, this is what we want for Tejas, the light combat aircraft from you. Today, we are in 2020, 35 years now. I don't have a single Tejas operational in the squadron. 35 years. The technology I conceived 30 years back is outdated. Air Force says, fine. You give us Tejas if you want to give us Tejas, because the Secretary of Defense Production is under you, the Defense Secretary is under you. You give me the aircraft, but for my operational role, please give me a reference. If the indigenous time, the human time is going to be 35 years, then I'd rather not have this aircraft. Things change. It's a mighty changing world in the aeronautics.
Sir, so Karan Marwa is asking you a question. He's saying there are multiple issues, lengthy procurement problems, multiple vendors, inter-service aspirations for the Army aviation. In your mind, which is the most critical issue and what are the possible solutions? And will the LCA ever match international standards? 2 questions.
Being an Indian, I'll say it will, but the technology will be outdated. The R&D which had gone through, the aircraft which I wanted in 1985, I don't want those specifications today. And if you tell them to change it, it's going to be another 20 years from now. But the very fact 50,000 crores has been pumped into the government, you have no choice to buy it. It's your own indigenous aircraft. Keep your fingers crossed, keep flying those, but you have to have latest technology also along with it.
Yeah. May I ask a question?
Yes, please. Vipinji, please.
Hanji. Gautam, there was some, maybe in the nature of some advertising about F-21s being considered by India. Any comment on that?
See, the point is, in the role of the MMRCA, both F-16 and F-18s came into the competition.
Right.
But they didn't finally. So the shortlisted aircraft were the Eurofighter and the Rafales only. But as of now, so many aircraft, so many players do come in. But at the end of the day, it's a long drawn procurement process. There's so many pulls and there's a political issues, there are vendors issues, but nothing. Actually, you can't predict.
Thank you.
And another question which is unanswered for Karan, multiple vendors, which is the most critical issue and which are the possible solutions?
I don't have a solution. Multiple vendors. I have multiple aircraft. I will have to have multiple vendors. Policy is such you can't go to a single vendor. You have to have competition. L1 policy, it applies across the board in civil sector as well in the defense sector. Only thing we say, we go to the OEM, We pin him down. This is what we say, pin him down. You give me 80% security. If I sign a contract with you, I'll do everything. You give me 80% security, give me spares. I don't want multiple winters. It's your responsibility to ensure my availability of 80%. So this is the concept which is coming to the Air Force as of today.
Yeah, so Mr. Goyal is also asking that we have now gone for availability of 80%, and if not get compensation, but in times of need like war, the supplier doesn't provide, then what is the use of that money?
Probably Mr. Vishnu Prakash will be more capable of answering this question. I can say we can just honor the contract which is committed, but in case of war, there are different alignments you can never be.
So that comes to we come to the next question. What do you think contributed to the success of the Balakot strike?
Oh, I thought this question is coming in. Okay, Balakot strike. I have a bit of insight because I play golf. My golfing foursome is what Air Marshal Hari Kumar, who actually planned the strike. Okay. So this strike was planned by Western Command, Air Marshal Hari Kumar, the man. And the first, besides, we had very good intelligence inputs from the RAW. They gave us precise locations where the targets are there. Now, coming back a bit, in case of Kargil war, we had used bombs which are with the laser kits of the Israelis. At that time, the technology was such, at that particular point of time, you get airborne, you laser designate a target, your other aircrafts get airborne with the bomb, which got an Israeli kit, which homes onto the target. So that was the technology at the particular time. Today, for Balakot strike, we use the SPICE missiles, where you just feed in the GPS. It's a standoff distance, 50 kilometers away. You just get a bit close to it and just leave it, release the bomb, and with the GPS coordinates, it goes on, hits the target precisely. This is exactly what happened. Now, the success of the story is one simple thing, it's the secrecy. Very few people, probably 3 or 4, knew exactly what was happening. It wasn't told to anybody. He was supposed to retire on 28th of February. This strike was kept a bit question mark between 25th to 27th. We are going to do the strike when favorable conditions are available. So they gave this. He had a farewell party on the 26th. Official farewell party, banquet for him, but the CNC was retiring. He was there at the party at 12 o'clock at night with the chief, with all the officers. After coming at 12 o'clock, he goes to his ops room in Subrato Park, underground, and monitors the strike. We have the Mirages taking over, flying off from Gwalior. We had, as a decoy, just to put suspicion in the mind, we had Jaguars taking over from Ambala. And the secrecy part was that they, from Gwalior, A-to-A refueling, they approached the target from Srinagar side and hit the targets precisely. And believe me, not even his wife knew about this sorting. His wife was next day supposed to fly to Chandigarh. He says, sorry, I can't, because he's got to strike there at 3 o'clock in the morning. He struck the aircraft. He's got what has happened. She was pretty annoyed. He told us later, she just howled and scowled. Okay, but this is, in case probably, he had told his wife, I don't think the sortie would have gone through because the ladies' club, kitty club would have known, the maids would have known, the strike would have gone through. It was utmost secrecy. Even the Central Command where the Mirages operate, that CSA didn't know about the strike. It was that secret, it went off. Great. Keep our fingers crossed.
Wow. So, how was Wing Commander Abhinandan actually treated by Pakistan, and what would we have done had, something happened the other way around?
It's a very difficult question. See, Abhinandan, the capability, he had the MiG-21s, he had the R-73 missiles, which are the heat seeker missiles, far inferior to their 16s. And when they were expecting the strike, we were prepared for the strike because Pakistan, to save their face, had to retaliate. We were expecting this. Everything was alarmed. Everything was there. Again, Hari Kumar was there in the sticker. This is what is come from him. Now he says, when they saw a big formation of F-16s coming in, they warned them to go back. It's too much of, you just can't survive this attack, go back. because of the jamming in the aircrafts, the number 2 of his heard this and he went back. Abhinandan, because of the jamming, couldn't hear it. He just pressed on straight, launched a missile, in the bargain got shot, and came back. So as for his prisoners of war, I think we are being lucky. We've had cases in 65 war, in 71 war, when the pilots were very badly treated. There was total torture against any humanitarian regulations, in spite of all the regulations. And in fact, they killed their own pilot. Did you imagine that aircraft F-16, they thought it was the Indian aircraft, they killed their own pilot. It was lucky the way the things went on, but being an Air Force man, I have worked with his father, Air Marshal Vartman. We've seen these boys grow up because his background, his valor, he composed himself, and probably I think we were lucky because the political and the international intervention at particular time, he came out safely.
So we have 2 more questions from our friends, and then we move to the next phase. We have to quickly move on. So how does our Air Force compare with the Chinese in terms of technology and capability? And can our Air Force fight a true 2-front war? Sanjay Simha is asking you.
Archana, we have had this 61 war, we had the 65 war, we had the 71 war. They are far gone, 50 years back. Today's environment, for me, that is what the experts say, you don't expect a full-time conventional war. Our strikes are going to be like Kargil strike, the Balakot strikes, where hit and run. This is going to be the concept which is there. I don't think we ever are going to come to a situation when a conventional war is going to take place. But having said that, whatever the Air Force position will be, yes, we have people giving statements where we can fight it out, but just see the number. I just go by the numbers. Pakistan is half our size, Chinese are double our size. We are dependent on N number of vendors, we are N number of people. Chinese had double our Air Force, they have more strength, more firepower. They are far superior as on paper they are concerned. But is anybody's guess what's going to happen? But I don't think ever we are going to come to a situation that we will fight a conventional war, at least in our lifetime.
I hope not. I hope we don't come into that situation and place. So, sir, now we move on to a different segment. Describe how women's role and place in the Indian Air Force has changed over the years.
Changed in what way?
Depending on the perks, the number of women coming into Air Force, the number of women in, up front, as in fighting in the fighter jets.
Okay, Archana.
Different roles of the Air Force.
My personal opinion is the women in the Air Force okay for helicopters and the transport. In fact, when I was in command, my crew, my 2 aircraft which were allotted to both of us, there was a one pilot there. Okay, we have the earlier Air Force stand was women pilot are not going to be in the fighters. That was the stand given by Air Force, but ultimately the stand has been changed. Women, there is experimental stage, the women are there in the fighter pilots. But let's see how it progresses, how they cope up with it. As of now, we are on the experimental stage, but definitely in other branches, and as for transport helicopter fleet, they are there and they are there to stay.
I would have liked to expand on that, but we have very little time now. So, and I want to, share some information from you for the youngsters as well. There are 2 questions. Is the armed forces now attractive enough for the youngsters? I mean, regarding the perks, the remuneration, and of course, adventures always there. And for all the kids who might be interested, please share more on the flight simulation technique centers.
Okay. The flight simulation centers, I will leave it to the expert. You can just ask him directly. Basarao is there. He will talk about the flight simulation centers. Okay. And as far the remunerations are concerned, to be very frank, when we were young, our parents told us, friend, you join the army? I said, yes, fine. Okay, so only concession I was given, don't join the army, join the Air Force. Okay, and we listen to our parents. But these days, there's so many options available to their children. Okay, do you think if I tell my son, he's going to listen to me? Probably he'll tell me what I'm supposed to do rather than me telling him what he's supposed to do. But the charm and the pride which was there in the past, okay, when the Maharajas used to be in the armed forces, those days are gone. But right now, it's a beautiful life, adventurous life. We've gone through it. Given a choice again, I will join the Air Force again.
So how's life been for you through the years?
Oh, very excellent. We're very happy, the two of us. Rather than me, if somebody asks me any question, if somebody asks my wife a question, what do you want to be in the next year, next life, in case you get a chance, she says, I would like to be an Air Force officer's wife.
I know she wears the pants in the house because even your computer is her name.
I'm wearing shorts.
But you have your wife's permission to do so, right?
Always.
I remember we were discussing yesterday. The computer's also in her name. So that goes on in the house?
Always.
Great. You're a happy man, that means.
You see, that's what I say. In case you've got to be happy, in your office, the boss is the boy, right? In your house, your wife is right. Then after that, you're happy.
I totally agree here. So that means lockdown times at home are great?
Super. I've taken a haircut.
The last request is your advice to the youngsters.
Boy, see, Air Force technology, the aircraft we fly, it's totally adventure. It's adventure. My point, the money may not be there as of now, but it's totally adventure. And as you grow up in service, the luxury is there. But you will have to rough it out in the daytime. We've all done so. It's total adventure. Every 2 years, you pack your bags and move on to the next place.
So I will just ask you, Mr. Badri Krishnan's asking that, will the S-400 missile system from Russia shift the balance or just maintain parity with China? This is the last question of the day, sir.
I'm not too sure. I'm sure about, I can answer that question. But this is a weapon system we've gone in for deliberately, knowing very well, in spite of all the objections from the US, in all the things, we said, nay, we want this system. We want the system. We want to have a balance. We have to have a product all over. We needed this weapon system. But will it going to shift the balance as compared to the Chinese? I'm afraid I'm not in a position, I'm not an expert to answer that question.
All right, with this, we wrap up. Thank you everyone for taking out time to attend this session. For those who did not know and want to know about the flight simulation technique, Mr. Arjun Basrao, right? Right, sir? Mr. Arjun Basrao?
Come in,
that's his son's name. So maybe, Mr. Basrao, why don't you...
He's also a member of WorldSpa and he's around?
Yeah, he's there.
Okay.
I was waiting for my chance when would somebody ask me any questions. Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
Well, good evening to all of you. I've also been in Air Force. My wife has also been in Air Force. I served for 14 years and left Air Force to join civil aviation. And from civil aviation, I came into the much needed training segment of the civil aviation and some part of also with the defense. That is to say that we have the Globemaster C-17 simulator with us. My wife was telling me that there's the students who want to understand the aviation career and being a pilot. And even though I have served in both the places, in civil and Air Force, and I think I can guide them well. At present, we have a flight school in Vadodara. If you heard of Gujarat Flying Club, that is ours, and the Flight Simulation Technique Center, wherein we have 2 training centers, one in Gurgaon, other is in Hyderabad, right at the airport, and we type train the people for the specific type of aircraft that you fly in civil aviation. That is a Boeing 737, Airbus 320, ATR 72-600 and Q400, which is in SpiceJet, the turboprop. even though aviation career is always a challenging one and also always pulls people around it, I see that people have less knowledge of how to achieve, how to attack that career. I guess if there are a group of students, I can be very helpful, because in the past, I think over past 10 years, I have trained approximately 1,000 pilots all over the country. Our facility is also certified by the European Aviation Agency, and therefore we have overall a view of what's happening in Europe, America, Southeast Asia, India, and those who are interested in Air Force, there's a certain set of training centers that we can go through, and also for the civil aviation, there's similar. The aviation per se remains same. Only the mindset changes if you want to be in the military and if you want to be in civil. So with that, I think I'll address the students more, and if you can have a similar session, I'll request Archana and Rakesh to arrange that if the request comes through, and I think that can be a whole session of more than 1 hour. In fact, I can consume that, and it can be really good for students who are just passing their 12th class, many of them thinking of going to US or UK for their studies. This is the right opportune time for the career when it is a little bit people are not very sure what's going to happen due to coronavirus. Maybe this is the time to stick around in India and make this career good. If anybody has any questions, you can ask me.
There are no questions. In fact, you've already answered. Gurraj Chapuri was asking for the children who might be interested. Please share a bit more on the flight simulation technique and centers, and you've already shared that. And that's great information. Thank you, Mr. Basrao. And we shall be in touch.
That's my website.
Yes, thank you.
People can look into it, what we do. And my personal website is, my personal email ID is, this will be helpful to people if they want to come in touch with me.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. Basrao.
Thank you.
Rakesh, probably this number and email ID can go in the thank you mail also, so that everybody around, even who's not attending the session, can be, we can share the information with them.
What does FSTC mean?
Flight Simulation Technique.
Yeah.
Technique Center. Okay, wonderful.
I have something to say about if we are covering aviation, and I know people have had different views. And since I transited from Air Force to civil, I have certain view, and I would like to share that. You see, we were left far behind because of the Industrial Revolution. And our country did not spend much into research. And when Modi ji said this around 6 years back, Make in India, I think it's too early for us still to say that we cannot make, or it's impossible. This only gives us impetus, and we all must believe in ourselves that we can do it. And this is the only way that we can come out of logistics requirements, various type of aircraft, various type of fleet, and not having a trust on any country, whether they will support us in hostilities. I think it's a very far thinking and very good thinking. Even if we do in small parts, we must do it. And what we should do here is some of the basic technologies which we can either have within our country or import them, but the final assembly and the training on those parts should be done indigenously, because that gives the real strength. Today is the world of outsourcing. We might outsource some of the parts, like what is Boeing doing? What is Airbus doing? You think those parts are not made in India? Yes. Around 50% parts of Airbus are made in India. there's around 15% parts of Boeing are made in India. So when we say that we are dependent on somebody else for the technology, we also have to learn diplomacy from people. We have to understand we cannot do all the things ourselves. We can start the process somewhere or the other, have the final assembly and the software control within us. And look at India. I'll talk of flight simulation, which I have certain expertise. Simulators are nothing but they're hardware machines run by the software, and they are certified by the aircraft manufacturer. This software, wherever that I go, the biggest companies in Canada, in US, in Amsterdam, all these companies, if you see, half the force there is Indian. The Indian software engineers working there. So what lacks in us is the leadership. Nobody is able to collect them together and begin the process. And the worst is there is no support. There is no support from our government towards this. I wish somebody has the right connect at the PMO who can bring this correct and who can say that yes, we have the capability. It's just that we need little support.
Yeah. So Dilawar, sorry for interrupting. I do have a view, and maybe offline over drinks we can connect.
Sorry.
Communication. We have worked a lot with Israeli companies, and they sell the same technology at 100 times the price. But it's our nature to kind of buy from white skin rather than Indians. But anyway, we'll all have to change the mindset. But sorry for cutting it short. I think this is very interesting.
Yeah, and we are exceeding our time. So let's
is after my life on WhatsApp to close this so that he can start the music hour. But I think thank you so much.
Yes,
everyone.
Thank you everybody. And thank you, Marshall Nair, for joining us and for giving us your time.
Thanks, Archana. Thanks, Rakesh. Thanks for having me over.
Thank you. And tomorrow we are going to meet up with Mr. Anand Prasad, a corporate and commercial lawyer with more than 25 years of domestic and international experience. We are looking forward to that. Time for the music hour. Sorry, Atul. This is your host, Archana Malhotra, saying goodbye. See you tomorrow.